Hello, it is Jack Gill, and welcome back to Mundo Sporto. This is something I'm not really quite used to. I am surrounded by European 2021 finalists, and Liverpool are not one of them. But before we get into all that, I just want to say, of course, it is Claude's funeral today. A great man who obviously lost his life a few weeks ago. We've had Terry on here a few times, a big friend of Claude's, and a great bloke. So obviously, if you can go and give him support and send your best wishes to Terry and for Claude today on social media if you can. But yeah, as I said, without further ado, let's get into this show. It's been a big week for English football. It's the second time in 3 years that we've got an all-English Champions League final. We could have had an all-English Europa League final too, but it was Arsenal that turned up last night. Before we go into a lot of chat about Manchester United that we've had over the last couple of weeks, and we've got Karthik on here for that. Obviously, I've got Matty, who's a big City fan, and Craigo, who's a big Chelsea fan. Both teams got through to the Champions League final this week. Both teams are playing each other this weekend. And first of all, I'm going to start with this weekend, Matty. You could secure the double this weekend. You could win the league if you beat Chelsea. Are you after the treble, though? That Champions League is going to be well in your mind now, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's got to be honest with you. I think the league's wrapped up now. Whether we win it against Chelsea at the weekend or not, I think that is going to happen. So I don't want to say that it's not the priority now, but I think the Champions League has to be the main focus now. I still think we'll field a pretty strong team against Chelsea because I guess it is kind of a Champions League final warm-up. So the FA Cup, we didn't play our first 11. We did play a pretty strong team, but by our standards, it wasn't our first 11. So I think this Saturday is a good chance for us to see our strongest team against Chelsea and sort of see how we can manage with them, because I personally wanted to get Real Madrid. I think Chelsea have been brilliant since Tuchel came in. So it is going to be a tough game. But yeah, I guess the Premier League is wrapped up now. So it isn't a major worry. But obviously we do want to win that game and get it done as early as possible.
And let's all talk about that game between City and PSG over the two legs. I thought City were phenomenal. There was that first 45 minutes in Paris where they were pretty poor, and it looked like the tie would go PSG's way. But then something clicked at halftime in Paris, and after that, City didn't look back at all, did they, Matty?
Unbelievable. I mean, that first half, I was tearing my hair out going, what? I genuinely said, and this is going to sound so bad, I said to my flatmate, I was like, I'd take 1-0 right now, which sounds so stupid looking back. But that first half, they just dominated us. They passed the ball through our lines. We couldn't get near them. They were so good in that first half, PSG. And I was thinking, this is a really tough game. And then I don't know what Pep said to them at half time, but we came out a completely different team. And it was a phenomenal display, especially in the second leg. Defensively, one of the best defensive displays I've seen us put in since the takeover. So it was incredible. Ruben Dias and John Stones, unbelievable at the back. In fact, the whole defense was brilliant. Even Zinchenko, who we brought in as a centre attacking midfielder, and now he's playing left back in the Champions League semi-final. It's mad, to be honest with you. But the whole team in that second leg was brilliant. I know they didn't have Mbappe, but he didn't have a shot in that first leg. So people can mention that he wasn't there, but he was kept pretty quiet in that first leg. And then Neymar, he struggled without Mbappe, I think, to be honest with you. Icardi, he was pretty much missing the whole game. He could not get in the game. I think Edison probably had more touches than him in that game. So it was a really brilliant display against PSG. And that's why you've got to be confident going into that final, because to handle a PSG team like that and frustrate them and make them lose their heads was a brilliant display. And I couldn't be happier about it, to be honest with you.
Karthik, there's a famous quote, isn't there? Sir Alex Ferguson said it on a couple of occasions. It's also famous in America through NFL players and coaches. But that quote is, that attack wins your games, but defense wins your titles, defense wins your championships. And, we've seen from Manchester City for so long now the quality to win games and to get huge points tallies in the league and stuff like that. but over 2 legs in the Champions League, they haven't quite had it. And sorry if this annoys you, Matt, but they've bottled it time and time again when they've come up in the big games in the Champions League. But this year they've found their man in Ruben Diaz. He's not just a world-class centre half; he's a leader too, and he's not just come in and improved their defence by himself. He's come and improved players too, and that for me makes him stand out as one of the best centre halves in world football at the moment.
Yeah, 100%. It's one of them where, I mean, you say it as a joke, but he is one of the Football Manager gems that everyone's been going on about for years, and now you see him doing his thing, and you go, well, there you go. Everyone knew about him. No, I'm proper jealous of him, because he's a player that I know we were linked with briefly. And then we ended up getting Lindelof, and I was like, you know what? I'd rather have had Ruben Diaz. And then this is what goes and happens. And I've said it all season that United ourselves are missing that kind of centre back to propel us that extra level. That's why we've not challenged for as long as we probably could have done. And fair play to them, they've replaced Company in the best possible way, and they're doing it now.
That's the thing, Matty. I think for me, I said last year when Company left City before last season, I thought you'd struggle last year because whether or not Company was playing regularly up until when he lost, it's about having that figure in the dressing room, that defender who is also a leader that can see what's going wrong. And you saw against Paris Saint-Germain, there was a couple of times where we know PSG like to break quickly, and there was a couple of occasions where there was an incredible challenge by Stones or a block by Diaz, and the whole City defence were there together, punching their chest, hugging. That's something I've never ever seen from Manchester City. That passion from the players. We've often seen, the arrogance of knowing their quality, and we've seen a few videos in the past of them taking the mick out of other teams and teams like things like that. But what I've seen this year from Manchester City is it's very apparent that they're focusing on themselves and ensuring that they are quality and that they're getting better and better each week. They're keeping clean sheets. They're not just winning games; they're focusing on the fundamentals of football, Matty.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think when you look at the title winners over the past years, you think of the greats: John Terry, Rio Ferdinand, Virgil van Dijk. Every club, and Vincent Kompany, every club has that brilliant leader at the back, that defender who's world class. And I don't think you can win a title without one of them, because Ruben Diaz, I think a lot of City fans weren't that sure on him. I think we haven't seen a lot of him. There was a clip that went sort of semi-viral in the City community of him making a slide tackle on someone for Benfica and giving away a penalty, and everyone was thinking, who's this clown we're getting in? Not clown, that's a bit harsh, but everyone was a bit cautious of him, I think, and he's completely succeeded everyone's expectations. I think he's been phenomenal for us. He's sort of changed the defence completely, because I think if you look back at the start of the season, Leicester at home, we were an absolute shambles. We conceded 5 goals and we were all over the place. And I think his effect hasn't just been himself being in the team. He's also improved the confidence of John Stones, of Kyle Walker, of Zinchenko, Cancelo. He's sort of made the whole defence more compact. And like you mentioned then, when Diaz, or I think it might have been Zinchenko, actually blocked a shot and they all celebrated it like it was a goal. That's what you want from your defenders. You want them to take pride in their defending, and you want them to be desperate to get that clean sheet. And I think over the past few years, it's sort of been a you score, we'll score too kind of mentality. And it's sort of, we've not really worried about defending that much. And since Ruben's come in, it's completely changed. And I think it puts less pressure on the attack, because they don't feel like they have to score every second. They can sort of take their time. They can sort of make chances without having to worry about, if they lose the ball, we're going to concede a goal, because that's almost how it felt for a while. It felt like every time a team came forward against us, they were going to score a goal, and that's changed now. And I think Ruben Diaz has to take tremendous credit for that.
Absolutely, and Craig, Matty's obviously speaking quite highly of Diaz there, and Diaz and Stones got a lot of the plaudits for the other night, and I know Matty briefly mentioned it before, but Zinchenko was also outstanding. But a player I want to point out, and I'm going to make a bold claim now, but it's Fernandinho, 36 years old the other night. Another incredible performance, another game where somehow he managed to go the game without any yellow card. But I honestly think, and you lot will probably argue with me, but for me, Fernandinho goes down as one of the most underrated players in the history of the Premier League.
I'd probably agree with that. I probably would agree with that. I think, and you might have to correct me on the year here, but I'm pretty sure, I want to say it was 2016, where he just dropped in and played centre-half next to, I can't remember who it was now. That takes guts. I mean, I remember Essien did it many years ago for Chelsea. Never quite had the same impact. And Fabinho's done it this year for Liverpool. You know, Fernandinho is an old-school footballer. He just gives it all the time, regardless of what position you put him in. And I really rate it. Is he the perfect player? No, and that's why he's not been spoken about as one of the best ever in the Premier League. But is he underrated? Of course he is. The leadership is absolutely massive, and I think in years gone by, when City have had company and a few other people, David Silva, another one, they've had leaders in different areas where Fernandinho's kind of leadership characteristics and skills vastly get overlooked through no fault of his own because of other people that you've had at the club. Same thing, you know, as Chelsea, we've had people down the years, David Luiz, it was, John Terry's still the leader because he's captain and whatever. And that year we won the league under Conte, David Luiz was a completely different footballer. He was established. He was, you know, I'm going to do this and that's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to do anything stupid. Made no rash challenges. Big signing. And he made a massive difference. That's what someone like Ruben Diaz has done. That's what someone like Fernandinho does. When given the opportunity, and it's unfortunately it's taken this long in his career, Fernandinho, for people to go, do you know what? Actually, he's quite good, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a very, very good City side. And for me, Matty, you know, I said it again the other night. It's definitely one of the best we've ever seen in the Premier League. And you know, you can argue black as blue, and I know there's a big thing in football with arguing which side's the best. There's the Invincibles, there's the United treble side, Liverpool's team of the last few years even gets thrown into the debates. But you know, for me, this City one has to be up there because you know it's been the longevity of it too. They've added a few faces in the last few years, but you know, the spine, you've seen players come and go. You've seen £60 million defenders added here or there. But, you know, Pep Guardiola has managed a great side to some absolutely, you know, a mass amount of silverware. And it looks like the Champions League might be on its way to the Etihad too.
Yeah, I think sometimes, obviously, I know it costs about $6 billion to put that squad together, as everyone quite rightly mentions all the time. But I think when you look at that team, there aren't many like outstanding players, if that makes sense. And in the way that Kevin De Bruyne, obviously one of the best midfielders in the world, but when people compare teams, you look at Liverpool, people say, well, Salah's better than Mahrez. Well, Mane's better than Sterling. Fabinho's better than Fernandinho. There aren't a lot of players in that team that people rate as the highest in their position. So it is more of just like a team. As a team, we are a phenomenal outfit. And there are players in there who people don't really rate that highly, but when you put them in that City team, they're unbelievable. And I think I'm not sure if this team is as good as some of the greatest that has ever been in the Premier League, but I think we are a phenomenal side to watch. And Pep Guardiola, whether people rate him or not, he's changed English football and he's made teams change the way they have to adapt to him. And against City, plenty of times I've seen this season and throughout seasons before, people play 11 men behind the ball and they just don't even try to attack. And you have to credit Pep for that because City's determination to win the ball back into high press teams, it is brilliant to watch. And yeah, we are truly blessed to have him as a manager and truly blessed to have all the money as well.
Well, let's talk about Chelsea now. Obviously, your opponents this weekend, your opponents for the Champions League final. I suppose the quote I said before, you know, about the defence winning your titles and championships is so apparent for Chelsea at the moment too, because, you know, under Lampard, it was very clear to see the foundations, Craig, wasn't it? It was very clear to see that there are good players there and there's a good side there. But the defence was shaky. It was never something he could get quite right. Thomas Tuchel comes in, he changes to a back three, and all of a sudden Chelsea are this defensive unit now. And actually, it's going forwards where you've got the problems.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to ever kind of slander Lampard because I think he did an incredible job. But the kind of transition between a 4 at the back, what we were playing with Lampard, to a 3 happened every now and again with Lampard in charge. I remember a big game we went to go and play Wolves, and they were in some sort of form, and we absolutely annihilated them, whacked them 5-2. Absolutely blew them away at Molineux. It's not surprising that you play 3 at the back and all of a sudden you start conceding less goals. It happened with Conte. It happened now with Tuchel. It happened on a few occasions with Lampard. We've got good personnel, which is great, and Lampard is largely responsible for that. I do. It's a little bit annoying because the kind of end of Lampard's reign, I still think a lot of the players just completely stopped playing, and it's obviously now. I mean, of course, we're Champions League finalists. It looks like we're going to have a great shot of getting top 4, which maybe we wouldn't have done before. But a large part of it, I think, comes from the players who are putting in this, new amount of effort and got this new lease of life from a manager. And the annoying thing is it shouldn't take something like that. But I mean, either way, it has. Do you know what I mean? We still can't score goals. That's the thing. And as much as, I tweeted that, defense wins championships, as much as I get that, and I'm a big American sports fan anyway, I get it. What we're doing at the moment where we're not necessarily scoring a hell of a lot of goals is, of course, still a problem. And for someone like Man City in years gone by where the defence hasn't necessarily been as good, they've scored a shed load of goals. Liverpool, same thing. The years gone by, scored a shed load of goals. All of a sudden, you sign Alisson and Van Dijk. I can't remember which order it was. I think Van Dijk came first. All of a sudden, it all kind of wraps itself up. We've got a great new goalkeeper in Mendy, who's brilliant. The back 3 is, it's established and it's confirmed. And I think there was the odd little bit of a worry about who was going to play in that back 3 because Zuma's been with us for so many years. You kind of think, oh, well, he's more experienced. He goes in. But actually, Christensen on the right-hand side in the last couple of weeks, or Azpilicueta, Christensen in the middle, even when Thiago Silva's been out. We've had that leadership in there with Jorginho able to play, Azpilicueta able to play, and also now Thiago Silva able to play. We've got leaders and we've got characteristics in this team that are really desirable. Annoyingly, a lot of these players are kind of slowing down, so you do have to kind of lose a little bit of the pace and the athleticism that goes with it. But it's a great transformation completely. It's just one I think even I will say I think it's been a little bit overhyped. But the thing for me, if it's not being overhyped, if we're still going and scoring 3 or 4 goals a game, which we can do. We've only scored 4 in a game once under Thomas Tuchel, and that was against Palace. And no disrespect to them, they had to kind of go for it. They had nothing to lose. But I've said it in years gone by. I mean, we've always played defensive football at Chelsea, and in the last 2 years, we've gone for this, let's go and play massive attacking football and love it and blah, 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 which doesn't really work. It works if you've got, the amount of money that Manchester City have got. And I'm saying this as a Chelsea fan, the amount of money that Man City have got, they can go and buy, Negredo didn't work out. Let's go and get Dzeko in. Or Tevez didn't work out. Let's go and get this person in. And you get these names and you go, that's a proper squad. 1 or 2 points, they've got 4 or 5 centre forwards, and we're struggling at the moment saying Werner's going to play left wing. We got 2, one of them's Giroud and the other one's Tammy Abraham. It's a bit of a weird one, but if you can get that problem out of your system, we've played defensive football for all these years. Hazard stepped up, Costa's stepped up, even old school Willian and Pedro, they all stepped up. We've had the players in years gone by to do it. And in the last 2 years, it's almost like we've thrown all of that away. And now all of a sudden we're coming back to it. Look what happens. We're in a Champions League final again, and with a decent chance of getting top 4 and probably even challenging for the league next year.
Lads, let's talk about the other night. We gave individuals for Manchester City a lot of credit, and I want to talk about Mason Mount in a moment. But for me, the man of the match the other night, Karthik, was N'Golo Kante. And there's been a few critics for that man in the last couple of years. He's struggled a bit with injuries. But we saw the best of N'Golo Kante the other night, and don't get me wrong, Real Madrid were very, very poor, but N'Golo Kante was his best.
100%. He showed his quality, and I know that he's had a rough spell. I think it's the last couple of years, but that I think is down to managers maybe underutilizing him. And I've always said that Kante perhaps wasn't played in the correct position, maybe not in the right system, but I think this suits him. The role that he played suits him. This is N'Golo Kante. This is his role. This is his job. And I think once you start playing to that strength and allow him to just do his job and not ask him to, overdo things, it shows how good he is, and he is a world-class midfielder, and he showed it the other night. He's not the youngest, but he's still in his prime, and he's still got a good few years left in him. So I'm happy for him, and he's probably one of the most likable players in world football at the minute. So you can only just look at him and smile.
It's interesting, isn't it, as well, that year that Leicester won the Premier League. A lot of people see that as an off season and a lucky season for Leicester. But now you're looking at players like Riyad Mahrez, who scores a brace and gets City through to the Champions League final, and N'Golo Kante, obviously man of the match for Chelsea, getting them through to the Champions League final. That Leicester year was no fluke, was it? They got some good players in. Their recruitment was outstanding, and those players have continued to be world class. But I did say we'd talk about Mason Mount, and Craig, we will talk about Mason Mount now. What a player! There's things where there's improvements there still to be done. We can talk about Phil Foden, who I am so fond of, and there's a big debate on Twitter between Mount and Foden at the minute. For me, Foden is very, very clear. I think he's up there with Mbappe and Haaland. I honestly think he'll retire as the best English player to ever play football. But Mason Mount is also a player that we need to recognise as Englishmen, as a talent that needs to be in that Euro starting 11.
For me, I mean, I love England, very passionate England fan. I'm just loving the fact that we're going to have two of these amazing ballers playing for us at the Euros and obviously going forward as well. For me personally, Mason Mount, that's something I can talk about a lot. I have seen him a lot. I knew the hype from the word go, and I knew what I was going to see. And I was on the hype train very, very early. I was probably the first person on the thing, and I'm very proud of that. He's not perfect, and I think a lot of people want to make out that he is, and this is the final product, and it's really not. I think over time, he's going to naturally drop back a bit, but he's full of running, he's full of energy, he's full of work rate, and that you're going to get pretty much a 7 or 8 or 10 out of performance out of him pretty much every single week. And it's not necessarily he's going to be the one every single week wins you the match. That's more likely to be a Phil Foden, from scoring goals and whatever. But I don't feel like that's ever going to be his game. And I kind of naturally see him kind of dropping back a little bit and almost doing what Jorginho's doing, but with and hopefully a little bit more pace in years to come, which is what's really exciting me. Because at the moment, look, full of energy, running around up top, makes a lot of sense. But I don't think this is his final position. And I think a lot of people, because he does get a lot of critics on Twitter, there's Mason Mount out pages, there's people making compilations for everything he's done wrong, which is ridiculous because he's 22 and he's only just turned 22 as well. It's nuts, to be honest with you. But, for me as a Chelsea fan, I'm not going to put anything on him. The chance of the day in the Champions League, he should be burying it. He really should be burying it. He scored his goal, which is great and fantastic. But the first chance, he really should be scoring. But what I love about Mason is that instantly after the game, he went, I should have scored that. I should have done better. The headlines grabbed me a little bit more than maybe I wanted it to, which is fine, because if you're expecting him to go and be Chelsea's best player with all the quality that we've got in the team at this point in his career, you're a bit of an idiot. But the fact that he's got this little bit of a characteristic to know, look, I know I did wrong here. I know I got that wrong. I'm going to go and work at it. And that's what I really want to see, is that work rate, whether it be on the pitch or off the pitch, to make himself a better footballer. And that's what I really, really admire. And that's what I think makes him, I probably back him a little bit more than Phil Foden, because, obviously I'm slightly biased, but I do think that work rate is going to propel him so far in his career. And in terms of the Mbappe and Haaland stuff, I'm not going to get involved in that, but I think Mason Mount is going to be a proper footballer in years to come. I think he could be Lampard 2.0. And that's not just because they play the same position and are both English and play for Chelsea.
With Mason Mount, and this isn't meant in a disrespectful way whatsoever, but he does remind me of Adam Lallana. His desire, he's very good on the press. For me, when you look about the best of Adam Lallana in his prime, if there was ever a prime Adam Lallana. For me, there's similarities there with Mason Mount, and obviously I think Mason Mount is going to be a lot better than Adam Lallana ever turned out to be. But in the game, I do see a lot of similarities for me, and I'm hoping that we see Mount, Grealish, and Foden starting for England in the Euros, because I think Maddison's very unlucky. I think he just falls out when you put the three of them in. But, for me, you've got Declan Rice in there as well. Harry Kane, of course. If Southgate builds his team around them three, I think it's going to be a very good Euros for England. But moving on now to the Europa League final. And obviously we've got Karthik with us, representing the Manchester United fans today. There's so much to talk about that's happened in the last couple of weeks with your football club, Karthik. Before I talk about the Europa League, let's rewind the last week. Let's talk about Liverpool, Manchester United first of all. I know you're a big Glazer out person yourself. I think you were at the protests, maybe not the ones the other day, but the ones before. But for me, there's a couple of things to talk about, because I've seen a lot this week with Gary Neville, who has come out and stood by the Manchester United fans who broke into the stadium and stuff like that. For me, fair enough. A protest is meant to cause disruption. It's meant to, as I said then, cause disruption and do things like get games cancelled. But there's a way of going about it. And, the Manchester United fans, the protest against their owners, the Glazers, who, of course, you hate for numerous reasons. For me, to get the biggest game in English football cancelled is a very, very big statement. But now you've got 4 games in the space of 7 days, and I'm seeing your fans moaning about it.
Yeah, I mean, on the protest, I mean, like, first of all, I absolutely support what happened. The one that I attended was on a lot smaller scale. This was a much bigger scale than I expected it to, because this was organised by supporters trusts, this and that. And I got quite a lot of criticism for some of the things I said after the protest and after obviously everything that happened. And I'd just like to clarify that, because look, it's all good going and breaking into. I don't mind them getting into the stadium. I don't mind them going in there to protest. If they'd gone in there and just said, you know what, we're not going to move because you're not going to play, this is our protest, fine, great, fantastic. However, you can't just ignore what a few idiots have done in that stadium, which is, break cameras, throw stuff around and just act like idiots in there. That's the bit I didn't like. That's the bit I said, you know what, all that good work, and then those few people have created a different narrative. They've almost deleted everything that the rest of them have done, which was the point I was trying to make. But everyone else seemed to say, you know what, let them do what they want. You're supposed to cause yes, you're supposed to cause disruption, but you're not meant to break the law. That's not it. You can't have 2 wrongs to make a right. That's not it. So no, 100%. I support what it was. It was a fantastic protest, and what annoyed me a little bit was people in the media, like Graham Souness, who came out and said United fans are just protesting because they're not, winning the league and they're not achieving as much success. And I'm like, that isn't the point, Graham. That's really not. Please clue yourselves up on what's happening before you make comments on things like this. And I've seen some of our own fans, as you mentioned, complaining about the fixture pile up and complaining about, why are we protesting when we're just reaching a Europa League final? It's really not the point. As you said, Manchester United against Liverpool is the biggest game in English football. I don't care. It's the biggest game in English football. Possibly one of the biggest
as well.
One of the biggest in world football. And if United fans are looking at that and saying, you know what, I don't care about this game, get it called off, that should tell you how big a point they're trying to make with this. And I think we got that point clear.
Can I just ask a question very quickly? Do you think that they don't care? Because I think one of the reasons that they potentially didn't want that game to go ahead is because they didn't want the potential that they were going to lose to Liverpool and hand Man City the league. I think it's a factor. I'm not saying all of them, but I think a certain few. I think it's a very decent argument to have.
I really don't. No, honestly, I don't think that played a part, because we all know City were going to win the league anyway. I don't think anyone would have cared if it was us that day, because if we lost that game, we were still second. If we won that game, we were still second. If we drew that game, we were still second. So to us, it didn't really matter. Maybe a few, as you say, could have said, I don't want us to lose. But I think the majority of us It was a case of let's get this called off, let's send a message, because don't forget, we got into the training ground, we had a protest the week before, and then we had this. It was all about building momentum and keeping the message strong. The other day we had, not a penny more that was launched, where we're protesting against the sponsors, we're boycotting all of that. So it's a momentum thing. So hopefully it can carry on, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I saw a comment there from Liz Golden, who says, it's a shame some supporters couldn't keep their cool because good trouble is important. And, I completely agree with her there. I think it's a situation where Manchester United fans are very good protest. I think it has to be done. I've been quite outspoken about, the Super League and owners myself. I've learned a lot about football and football owners over the last few weeks and couple of months. But, the Glazers are one of the worst, and fair play to Manchester United for doing that. As I say, it's a massive thing to get a Liverpool-Manchester United game cancelled. But, one thing that Gary Neville has found himself in trouble with this week is, coming out and supporting the protest. But obviously, there's lots of violence at those protests, and he's made a bit of a tit of himself because as you say, Karthik, there was a small minority who decided to go in and twat cameras and to cause not only violence. I saw a police officer was injured as well, and by the way, I'm not condoning some of the things I've seen from the police and the security, but I think they were quite brutal with some of the stuff they've done. But like Liz says there, it's all about a good protest, and there was a select few, and I have to point out it was only a small few that didn't do that. And for what I've heard, Manchester United are going to do the same when the game is played on Thursday next week. So let's hope that time it's as big, but it's all peaceful, because it was some stuff that we saw the other day was a bit disgusting. But anyway, let's talk about more football matters now, Karthik. And a loss on the night yesterday for Manchester United. It wasn't the greatest of performances defensively, but it was job done in the first leg, and you're there now going to Gdansk.
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't have wanted that result. I mean, no one wants to lose a game of football. And I said it as a joke yesterday, even when we progress to a final, we do it while losing a semi-final. So clearly we can't get over that. No, it was a weird one because the first half I thought we did okay. We weren't too bad. They had a couple of chances, but they didn't really take any of them. And I thought if we can go and score first, we can get control of this game. And obviously Cavani could have scored a first half hat trick. He got his goal in the end, and I thought that's job done. And then Ollie did the right thing. He took a few players off, gave them some rest, and then it all just collapsed in a space of 5 minutes. And it was a case of when they scored their second, I thought, hang on a minute. This could go wrong here. And then they had the double save. De Gea had a fantastic game, by the way. If not for him, we probably would have had extra time. And then we got over the line, and I think that's the most important part of it. It's a case of the team has got over the line. Obviously, they won't be happy with the performance, but result-wise, they've got to be happy. They've got to be proud of themselves, and we're in our first final under Ollie.
And I think, with 4 games in a week, you could have expected a bit of a below par performance last night. The job was already done, as I say, after the performance in the first leg. And, for me, I always expected you to lose last night. But, you were right. David De Gea was superb. Defensively, you were all over the shop. It could have been a lot more for Roma. But you got the job done. You're in Ollie's first final, and you're the favourites against Villarreal.
Well, you say that, but then Unai Emery loves the Europa League, so there's always that factor. There's always the factor of that he's won it that many times, and a lot will be made of the experience that he's had in this tournament and he's had in these finals. But as Rio said on the post match, we've got players that have won it as well. We've got that experience too. The likes of Paul Pogba, he's been there, he's won that tournament, he's been in this thing, and he's won trophies in general. So we've got leadership qualities, we've got experience, and hopefully it'll take us over the line. And of course, we've got Edinson Cavani up front. What do I need to be worried about?
And Matty, Ollie's had a lot of critics over the last couple of years, myself included. I said a few years. Well, I said it a lot of the time, really, that, you know, Manchester United would win nothing under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I've called him a PE teacher, the lot. And even this season, when, you know, Manchester United have been doing well, I've been holding on to, it's the players, you know, they've got world-class players, and you know, there's not many tactics involved. The players do it themselves. They get free rolls and all of that. I've been quoted before as well to say that, you know, Manchester United won't win anything under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, but they've got a big chance with the Europa League. And for me, I have to hold my hands up and say that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer deserves a lot of credit, because I think his Manchester United side this year have been very good.
See, I'm not sure. I find it's such a bizarre one, because on paper, United haven't lost an away game since, I think, Liverpool, was it last January or something, or have they lost one since then? They have been very impressive by stat, but when I watch them, I'm just not inspired. I think there was a time where I thought United could potentially win the league, and I was thinking, how is this United team going to win a league? Because I'm the same as you, Jack. I said they'll never win a Premier League under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and to be honest, I still think that now. I think I commend United fans for the Glazer out process. I think everyone in this call over the last few weeks with the Super League stuff and that, we've all been angry at our owners, and it's been good to see football united against them. So I have no issue with that. Obviously, the few muppets that have been breaking stuff and fighting with police, that it sort of distracts away from the main goal of the United fans. So to be honest, I have no issue with that. In terms of United as a team, I think Europa League, it's one of them. I wouldn't want to be in it. If City had the choice to finish third in our Champions League group or fourth and go out of Europe completely, I'd rather finish fourth. I wouldn't want to be in the Europa League. So that might cause a bit of uproar with United fans. They might see Europe is a trophy. I've had United fans say the same to me. A trophy is a trophy. It's still a European competition. But for me, it's the BTEC one. It's the one you don't want to be in. So therefore, I don't see it as that impressive. I think the teams left in the Europa League weren't all that Roma in that first leg. They're embarrassing. Villarreal, their Emirates, they've drawn with an Arsenal side that our Arsenal in the semi-final. That's another thing. I think it's one of them competitions that it's an all right achievement. Don't get me wrong, but it wouldn't be anything I'd be shouting about, to be honest with you.
Coming from the guy that's never won one.
Yes.
I think it's an interesting conversation. I think nobody really cares about the Europa League and being in the Europa League unless you go on and win it or get to the final. I think that's how it feels. And, you know, as a Liverpool fan, I'm speaking about us this season. And, you know, I'd rather us miss out on Europe completely than the Europa League. But saying that, I know that the Europa League is a good opportunity next season. If things don't go great again, we can go on and win the Europa League and get Champions League football that way. Or it's a chance for silverware and European silverware at the end of the day. And, you know, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has to start somewhere, Craigo. And for this, it's his first final. It could be his first trophy. And even still, you know, as I said, I wasn't the only critic that said he won't win anything at Manchester United. I'm the only person that's called him a PE teacher and said he's shit. You know, he's got a lot of critics, and, you know, it will be good for him to go and shut them up in Gdansk.
Well, I think Man United are going to win it. I can't lie. But I think if it was any other occasion, I do think that they were going to struggle to do it, because playing Roma are a decent side. But that first leg, the first, what was it, half hour, 40 minutes of it, 2-1 down. And then obviously they had so many injuries and the game went massively in Man United's favour. I mean, that's football. That's why we play it. Do you know what I mean? But I think it's slightly lucky that happened. And of course, this game last night, I mean, Man United lose again. Not a problem at all. It's part of football. But the task for Roma was nigh on impossible, which is probably pretty much the only reason Man United scored twice. You know, it's a bit of a tough one, but I don't think that Ollie deserves a mass amount of credit. I don't think it's a mass amount of, he's, you know, transformed this team and he's turned them into something that they never thought they could be. He's done a job. And I think it's very similar to what happened with Arteta. There was a massive debate. Who's going to do more? Is it going to be Ollie? Is it going to be Frank? Or is it going to be Arteta? Arteta's already won a piece of silverware. Doesn't necessarily mean that he's the best manager. I mean, he's likely to be sacked come the end of the season. I don't think they'll do it anytime soon. I think he's going to be sacked at the end of the season. Lampard's already been sacked, again, it's another thing. But I don't think if Ollie wins this, it instantly turns him into, he's a great manager. I still think there's going to be a problem with him going forward. And I don't know. I think it's a really tough one with him because Man United have got to be favourites. Villarreal have never reached a European final, so you do have to back Man United. And if you don't, you're again an idiot. Do you know what I mean? It's just it's not a wow for me, which is what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer needs to be considered right up there as a good manager. He's done them a good job, but they're still, correct me on my points, are they about 9 points behind City, something like that?
Near enough, yeah.
So something near enough. It's still a long way off, and people are really talking highly about him. He's still 9 points off, and in years gone by, any other 9 points off doesn't really get mentioned about. But yet, Man United are second, and it's here we are. Do you know what I mean? It's not wowing me, and I have. If I were to make a bold prediction, I don't think I'm ever going to be wowed by Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Give credit because he's in a final, but I don't think he's that manager that everyone's making him out to be.
I think the thing that frustrates me about United, I think they kind of get away with it in the sense of the amount of money they've spent. They've spent nearly $1 billion since Fergie left. Yes, I'm a City fan. Of course, we can't talk about spending money. But that back four from United costs hundreds of millions. Pogba, 80. Maguire, 80. Lukaku, flopped, 80. People come at City for spending money and saying that's the only reason you're successful. But Man United are a key example of spending money doesn't guarantee trophies. Personally, I think if Pep had gone to United instead of City, they'd have won a league by now because they'd have invested in the right players. We wanted Maguire, we wanted Fred, we wanted Sanchez, and none of them have been amazing for United. And it's no coincidence that. And I think the manager has to take some responsibility for that. I don't think Ollie's doing a bad job at United, but he's certainly not doing an amazing one. And I think the amount of money that's been pumped into that squad, they should be doing better.
I think that's expected though, isn't it? And, the credit I've given Ole Gunnar Solskjaer there is dependent on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and the levels I feel that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is at. And, we talk about Pep there and what he's done with City and Klopp and what he's done with Liverpool and managers like that. For me, even Tuchel with Chelsea, but for me, Ole is nowhere near that level of manager. And, that's why I will give him respect if he goes and wins the Europa League with Manchester United, because that is a start. That is more than I thought he would go and do with Manchester United. But, as you said there, Matthew, you alluded to before, I don't think Manchester United are a threat to winning the Premier League under Solskjaer. I really don't. I saw your tweet the other day, Carthy, about if you sign Sancho and the possibility of your attack next year. I just can't see you winning the league and Solskjaer. I tip Chelsea to do it next year, because they had a really good summer last year. They're looking good under Tuchel. They've got a system now that works for them, and Tuchel will go in the summer. He'll be backed by Abramovich. He'll get players that he wants, and I think they're real underdogs for the Premier League title next year. Yeah, it's an interesting one, Karthik, and I'm sure you've not liked a lot of what you've been hearing there.
No, just to sort of respond on some of those things. So in terms of the Europa League, I agree. It's not the tournament you want to be in, and it's not the tournament United fans want to be in. Let's not forget we were in the Champions League at the start of it, and there's a clip that's very famous of me saying we're going to win it. But it's one of those where you say City wouldn't want to be in it, Liverpool wouldn't want to be in it, and I agree. But you have to take it into consideration of the context. Now, this Manchester United team needs a trophy. It doesn't matter what trophy it is, it needs a trophy. And at this point, we have to value a trophy over finishing high in the league at this and that. And I know Ollie's gone out and said, silverware is just one part of it. It's the league that really matters. Now, if we finish this season in second and with the Europa League, I think that cements what he's trying to say in terms of that the league position's there and we've won a trophy. And that way we've actually progressed. I'll admit that the football isn't great at times, and it's not a finished picture. We've seen spells of what we can be, like the second half against Roma, like that Leeds game, like the game against Liverpool in the FA Cup. There's little spells there where we play some fantastic stuff, and you have to think, what is it going to look like when Ole gets a full squad of what he wants? Because let's not forget, while we've spent money, and I admit over the years we've not spent it in the right way, which is part of the reason why we're protesting against the Glazers, we with Ollie, the signings that he's made, none of them have really flopped. All of them have been successful in their own way, and I can't think of anyone. Okay, maybe Alex Telles. I'll give you that one, but that's because of the form of Luke Shaw. Other than that, all of his signings are doing well. They're all playing pretty much every game now, and they're very big members of this squad. So when he gets more, when he gets maybe a Sancho, when he gets that holding midfielder, maybe a Declan Rice, that will allow us to progress a little bit more. And seeing what we've done so far, a fifth place, a third place, and now a second place, and possibly a trophy, you've got to back us a little bit. And I think it'd be silly to count us out completely. I will clip you up saying that we're not going to win the league, Jack, but if we do, you better be careful.
Donny van de Beek isn't playing every week, though, is he, Karthik?
Yeah, no, I forgot about him. You know what? It says a lot that I forgot about him. It says a lot that I forgot. But I'm convinced on that one. I'm convinced that he was signed possibly in case Pogba left, and now that it looks likely that Pogba's staying, I do feel sorry for him, and it looks like either he's not going to get as much time as he was promised, or he's going to end up leaving. I'm not sure, but we'll see.
Yeah, it would be a big loss that with Pogba. I think he's looked very good on the left at times when he played for United there this season. I think that might be a thing for France in the Euros as well, because obviously we saw them trying to play Matuidi left wing in the World Cup. So, now they've got an option there with Pogba, and it means they can fit Kante and Ndombele in that 4-4-2 that the Champ seems to like as well. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if we see that in the Euros. But just predictions this week on some of the big games before we finish then. And Matty and Craigo, I'm going to come to you first of all. City, Chelsea, what are you feeling? Craig, firstly?
I still think the City squad is too good, and I think that they've got a little bit of intensity. And I was going to say earlier that I think that they'll want to wrap the league up this week so they can put all their eggs into one basket. They know that we've got an FA Cup final and we still have to think about top four. If they can wrap it up right now, I think they will. So I think it's going to be a dominant City performance, but I'd still back that we can keep them out and then go and do the same thing we did in the FA Cup semi-final, nick a 1-0 win. That's what I think is going to happen.
May, what about you? Are you feeling confident? Do you think you'll bring home the league this weekend?
Yeah, I think it will be a tight game. I think that it isn't going to be a goal fest. I think it is going to be about which defence comes out on top, and I'm going to go with Craig. I'm going to go 1-0, but I'm going to go to us. I think it will be a tough game. But I think with all our players fit and our strongest 11 playing, I think we can beat Chelsea. I think we're still a better team, although Tuchel's done a brilliant job so far. I think they've only lost 2 games, and one of them they were already through in the Champions League. So it is going to be a tough game. They are a very hard team to break down. So I think it will be tough, but I still back us to win the game, but just 1-0.
And Karthik, what do you think it'll be?
It'll be interesting because obviously it's a little preview to the Champions League final as well. I think it's, as they say, it's going to be a tight game. I could see it being a 1-1 draw. I think that's probably going to be what it is.
Yeah, I was going to say 1-1 as well. That is undoubtedly the biggest game of the weekend. People have their eyes on it with the Champions League final around the corner as well. City obviously could win the league, but at times when they've been in this situation this season, I think the Leeds game where you drop points there. And as you said before, Matty, it won't be your firm focus at the minute, will it? The league looks pretty much wrapped up anyway. There's that Champions League final in your sights now.
Finally.
Thank you guys for joining me for this one. And we will be back next week with the next edition of this podcast. Thank you to Karthik, Craig, and Matty. Make sure you go and check them out on their socials. And we shall see you all very soon. Ta-ra.